I want to start today with a scenario, a bit of a thought experiment.
Okay.
So imagine a massive tech startup. They're just absolutely crushing their recruitment goals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're hiring thousands of bright, young, enthusiastic people, onboarding them in record time, and then shipping them out to open new offices all over the world. The graphs are all, up and to the right.
Sounds like the ultimate success story.
Yes.
I mean, every company wants to be that company.
It does, right. But then, let's say you get access to the internal data, and you realize that while the hiring numbers are through the roof, the retention is just abysmal.
Uh-huh.
These new hires are burning out in like 18 months. The new offices are chaotic, the culture is toxic, and the actual work isn't getting done. You've built a recruitment machine, but you haven't actually built a company.
That is a terrifying picture. It's the illusion of success, but it's masking a systemic collapse.
Exactly. And according to the stack of sources we're deep diving into today, that is precisely the dynamic playing out in a sector you might not expect: global missions.
Wow. That's a heavy comparison to make.
It is. But the provocative question at the center of all this material is kind of unavoidable. The authors ask, what if the greatest obstacle to the Great Commission today isn't government persecution?
Okay.
It isn't a lack of money. It isn't even a shortage of volunteers.
Go on.
What if the biggest hurdle is actually well-intentioned churches that are mobilizing people faster than they can shepherd them?
That is a massive claim, and frankly, it's a bit counterintuitive.
How so?
Well, if you listen to most appeals for mission work, the narrative is always that the laborers are few, right? We need more people. We need to go faster.
And that's the tension we have to unpack, because on the surface, you're right, we're living in this golden age of connectivity and mobilization. Preferences are packed, short-term teams are flying everywhere. The mission language is just louder than ever.
But the sources are saying that underneath all that energy, there's this quiet tension, a structural flaw.
Yes, and I think you put your finger on it with a phrase from one of the authors.
Expansion without endurance.
Expansion without endurance. That's it. Activity without maturity. And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to try to figure out why modern mission efforts so often fail to sustain what they start.
And we're going to look at why just sending isn't enough.
Right, and how recovering a biblical rhythm of shepherding might be the fix we need.
And I think it's important to say right up top, this isn't just for professional missionaries or pastors. I mean, if you lead a team, if you raise kids, if you care about how any organization grows, this touches on that fundamental difference between starting something and sustaining it.
So let's get into the psychology of this. Why do we lean so heavily into the sending side of the equation? Why is that go button so much bigger than the stay button?
So the sources call this the paradox of speed and skill. And it makes total sense when you look at the water we all swim in. Modern mission has kind of adopted the personality of modern culture.
We value speed.
We value speed. We value efficiency. We love things at scale.
We do. We love a good assembly line. We want the growth hack for the gospel.
Right.
Yeah.
And the assumption is, if we can create a training manual, run a fierce weekend seminar, and get someone on a plane,
Yeah.
well, the job is done. Box checked.
Mm.
But the sources identify a massive blind spot here. They call it the myth of readiness.
The myth of readiness.
It's the dangerous, largely unspoken assumption that training equals readiness.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Yeah.
If I've been trained, I've done the coursework, I've learned the language, I've got the strategy memorized, I've got the visa, aren't I ready? That seems like a logical connection.
In a technical sense, sure. You might know how to do the tasks, you can draw the diagram, you can organize the meeting, you can balance the budget.
Right.
But the distinction the authors make, and this is so crucial, is between transferable skills and character. Skills are teachable and they're scalable. You can teach 1,000 people a skill in a webinar.
But you can't teach resilience in a webinar.
Exactly. You can't teach someone how to endure suffering or how to navigate a complex betrayal by a friend or how to just sit with deep, crushing loneliness in a weekend workshop.
It's like the difference between knowing the theory of swimming and being dropped in the middle of the ocean during a storm.
Precisely. And the argument here is that we're equipping people with the mechanics of ministry, the tools of the trade, but not the spiritual infrastructure to survive using them.
We treat mission skills as these advanced tools for specialists.
Yeah, but without the character formation, those tools are just heavy And when the pressure comes, and in mission work the pressure always comes, the leaders crack.
And when they crack, it's not like they just quietly resign. It usually causes a blast radius.
That's the tragedy. It
Mhm.
damages the individual, often leading to burnout or even loss of faith, but it also damages the local church they were trying to help.
And this leads us to one of the most sobering concepts in the text. It's a term that made me just stop and reread the paragraph a few times. The theology of replacement.
Oof. Yeah, that sounds
Uh,
heavy, almost heretical.
It borders on it, functionally. The theology of replacement describes this subtle error where our external expertise, so the missionary strategy, the funding, the training program, it unintentionally replaces the local church's spiritual agency.
It's unintentional, but it's deadly. Can you give us a concrete example of what this looks like on the ground?
Sure, think about it like this. A highly trained Westerner arrives in a developing nation. They have a fully funded strategy, a laptop full of PDFs, a proven model from a conference in Dallas.
Cool.
The local believers, looking at this impressive package, they naturally step back. They think, well, they have the resources, they have the degrees. They must know how God works better than we do.
So instead of relying on the Holy Spirit and their own community to discern God's will, they just start relying on the consultant.
Yes. It brings up a question of what the source calls functional Christology. We have to ask ourselves, who is actually building the church? Is it the expert with the flowchart? Or is it God working through the locals?
And the text argues that when we rush in with our speed and our skill, we answer that question incorrectly with our actions, even if our theology is right on paper.
It just creates dependency.
We become the crutch they never needed.
Worse, it creates fragile initiatives. I mean, if a movement is built on the presence and expertise of an outsider, what happens when that outsider leaves?
The initiative collapses.
Yeah.
It's a house of cards.
Precisely. We haven't created maturity. We've created a franchise that needs corporate headquarters to keep running.
Wow.
And the source uses a phrase here that hits really hard. I want everyone to really hear this. Empowerment without shepherding is abandonment.
That is a tough pill to swallow. Empowerment without shepherding is abandonment. I think a lot of donors and organizations would recoil at that. They think they're helping.
Of course.
They think sending the money and the strategy is the empowerment.
They absolutely think they are helping. That's why the text calls them well-intentioned. But the argument is, if you give someone a burden, even a holy burden like leadership, that they aren't strong enough to carry yet, and you don't stay to help them carry it, have you really empowered them? Or have you just crushed them under the weight of your own expectations?
That really shifts the perspective. So, okay, if sending alone is the problem, if this fast transactional mobilization is breaking things, what's the alternative?
Nah.
Because you can't just stop going.
No, you don't stop going, but you change how you go. The alternative is shepherding. But we need to define that, because I think we hear shepherding and we just think of, a nice pastor drinking coffee with people and patting them on the back.
Right, it sounds cozy.
But the sources frame this as a fundamental clash of values. Sending is transactional. Shepherding is relational. Sending is fast. Shepherding is agonizingly slow.
Agonizingly slow.
Yeah.
That doesn't sell well in a quarterly report to donors.
It really doesn't. You can't put shepherding on a graph. We loved people deeply and slowly this quarter doesn't look as good as we planted 50 churches and saw 1,000 decisions.
The text brings up the Apostle Paul here, which is interesting because I think most people view Paul as the ultimate sender.
Yeah, the original rapid deployment guy.
Exactly. He was always moving, always planting, always on to the next city.
He was moving, yes. But the authors urge us to look at how he moved. Paul didn't just deploy people and wish them luck. He circled back. He revisited the cities where he was stoned and beaten just to check on the disciples.
He risked his life just to see their faces.
And the letters. We can't forget the letters.
The letters are the smoking gun. These aren't just administrative memos. They're not, hey, Timothy, don't forget to file the 990 form.
No, they are deep, painful, theological outpourings. He calls himself a father to them. He says he is in the pains of childbirth until Christ is formed in them.
That's a very visceral image. Childbirth. It implies pain. It implies a bond that isn't easily broken. It implies that the relationship changes you.
Exactly. Paul balanced his apostolic agility, his ability to move with ecclesial authority, which is that deep fatherly care. He wasn't a consultant dropping in to fix a problem. He was a spiritual parent raising a family.
So the argument is that modern mission has kept the agility. I mean, we're better at travel than ever,
Oh, yeah.
but we've lost the paternity. We've lost the
Yeah.
parenting aspect.
Spot on. We're moving like Paul, but we aren't loving like Paul. And that leads to a phrase in the source that I think just sums up this entire section. It's my favorite line in the whole packet. The pace of love.
What does that mean to you?
Love moves slower than strategy.
That's good. Break that down for me.
Well, strategy is linear. It wants to hit a target. It wants to get from A to B in the most efficient line possible. It views obstacles as things to be removed.
Mm-hmm.
Love is meandering. Love stops for the person who is hurting. Strategy wants to plant the church in 6 months. Love wants to ensure the pastor doesn't have a moral failure in year 3.
Strategy looks at the map. Love looks at the soul.
Yes. And the source touches on this, right? The Jesus model versus the modern model.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The source makes that contrast explicitly. Look at Jesus. If you were a modern consultant looking at his ministry, you'd fire him immediately.
3 years, 12 guys, no buildings, no written plan, no budget.
And even after 3 years, the 12 guys still barely understood what was happening.
Right. One betrayed him. The leader denied him. It was messy. But it was a slow incubation model. He invested in their inner transformation before he ever really authorized their deployment.
Compare that to our rapid multiplication models.
We want the fruit without the root.
But here's the friction point, right? We have listeners who are leaders who are on boards. How do you measure this? If I say I'm adopting the pace of love, my board is going to ask, okay, that's nice, but what did you achieve?
And that requires a total reframe of success. This is the hardest part for us type A achievers. The expert view here is that we must stop measuring success by how much we do and start measuring by how little we need to stay.
How little we need to stay. That sounds like working yourself out of a job.
It is. It's about capacity transfer. Success isn't when you're running a huge movement and everyone knows your name. Success is when your skills have disappeared into the hands of local believers and they are running it without you.
So you're building a legacy that thrives in your absence, not one that depends on your presence.
It requires a very low ego. You have to be okay with fading into the background.
It's the John the Baptist principle. He must increase, I must decrease.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem. We are addicted to speed and transactional sending. We've identified the solution, a shift to relational shepherding. But how do we actually do this? The sources outline pathway.
They call it the forgotten pathway. And importantly, it's not a checklist. It's not step 1, step 2, step 3.
No, it's an integrated rhythm of 3 things: sharing, praying, and going.
All right, let's take them one by one. Sharing. I assume this means evangelism.
Yes, but not the way we usually think of it. The text calls this witness as overflow. In the West, we often treat evangelism as a scheduled event. Tuesday night is visitation night. Here is my tract.
Right.
But the biblical model is that sharing is a relational overflow. You share because you can't help it. But there's a technical aspect here that I found fascinating regarding orality.
Orality, meaning oral cultures.
Right. The source deep dives here, and I think this is a huge blind spot for us. Consider this. The vast majority of unreached people groups, the people we are trying to reach, are oral learners.
And let's clarify, that doesn't just mean they can't read.
No, exactly. It's not about intelligence or literacy rates. It means they process information differently. We Westerners are text-based. We love our bullet points, our logical syllogisms, our textbooks. We think if it's written down, it's true.
But oral cultures process truth through story, through proverb, through dialogue, through repetition.
So when we show up with our 4 Steps to Salvation tract and our systematic theology textbooks,
it feels foreign. It feels like an import. It feels like school, not life.
right. And the source argues that written systems can actually sideline local knowledge. If the gospel is trapped in a book that only the educated can read, it creates a hierarchy. It makes the gospel feel like it belongs to the elite.
But oral storytelling honors memory.
It honors community dialogue. It allows the gospel to travel naturally across generations because it lives in the people, not on the paper.
So sharing isn't just about the message, it's about the medium. If we want it to stick, it has to be shareable in the way people actually talk.
Exactly. We have to recover the art of storytelling. Okay, second part of the triad, praying.
Wait, engine.
The engine. But again, there's a nuance here. The source distinguishes between prayer as a wrapper for the work versus prayer being the work.
Oh, I've seen the wrapper approach. You plan a whole strategy, you buy the tickets, you hire the staff, you pick the logo, and at the very end of the meeting you say, Lord, please bless this thing we decided to do.
Right. It's polite. It's tipping your hat to God. But look at the church in Antioch in Acts 13. This is the pivotal moment where Paul and Barnabas are sent out. But notice the order. They were worshiping and fasting before the Holy Spirit spoke.
They weren't brainstorming.
No, they weren't strategizing. They were ministering to the Lord. And the strategy followed the spiritual sensitivity.
Yes. The source calls prayer the lungs of mission. If you aren't breathing, if you aren't in that place of dependent waiting, the movement just dies.
We want dependence on God, but our speed often forces us to rely on our own cleverness.
It's the difference between asking God to approve your plans and asking God for his plans.
That's the key. And frankly, waiting for God's plans takes longer. It brings us right back to that pace of love versus speed. Now, the third part, going. We've already bashed sending a bit, so how does going fit into a healthy model?
The concept here is obedient presence.
Obedient presence. I love that phrase.
Going shouldn't mean leaving community behind to become a lone ranger. But more importantly, for the person who is going, the goal is embodied presence. It goes back to that idea of accompaniment.
Walking with.
Yes.
Yes.
You aren't going there to be the hero. You aren't going there to be the savior. You are going there to be the friend, to be the brother or sister.
Yeah.
There's a tragic reality mentioned in the sources regarding Indigenous leaders. We celebrate them in our newsletters. Look at this amazing local pastor. But in reality, many of them are just crushing under the weight.
Because we started a program, dumped it on them and said, good luck, you're empowered, see you next year.
Right. We gave them a load-bearing wall to hold up, but we didn't help them build the foundation. Healthy going means staying relationally connected enough to help them carry that weight until they are truly ready. It means staying when things get messy.
This brings us to the practical application. We've got this triad: sharing, praying, going. But how does this change how we use our skills?
Right.
Because we have listeners who are doctors, accountants, strategists, marketers. Are we saying those skills are bad?
Not at all.
Are we saying we should all be unskilled?
No, excellence honors God. But the source uses a beautiful image. Skills as servants, your skills must kneel.
They must kneel.
They serve the relational and spiritual formation of the people. They don't drive the bus. If your strategic planning skill is causing stress and division in the local church because it's too aggressive, your skill has become a master, not a servant.
It's crushing the people it's supposed to help.
Exactly.
There's a story in the source material, I think it was from Southeast Asia, that illustrates this shift perfectly. I want to share it because it puts flesh on these bones.
The turnaround story.
Yes. It describes a mission team that was initially focused entirely on rapid growth. They were hitting all the metrics. Church plants were popping up everywhere. They were the darlings of their organization. But then the wheels started coming off.
Infighting.
Yeah.
Moral failures, burnout. The usual suspects.
The movement was shaking because it was shallow. It was a house of cards built on speed.
And this is the moment where most teams would just double down. And think, we need more funding, we need better training, we need to work harder.
Exactly. But this team did something brave. They stopped, they pivoted, they shifted their focus from multiplication to mentorship.
Wow.
They stopped worrying about the numbers and started worrying about the souls of the few key leaders they had. They started having coffee instead of conferences.
That must have been terrifying. To see the numbers drop, to have to explain that to supporters.
I'm sure it was. But here's what happened. The movement stabilized. It became self-sustaining. The leaders got healthy. They learned how to shepherd their people. And then the growth came back. But this time, it was organic. It was like a forest growing, not a wildfire burning out.
That requires such profound security. You have to really believe that God is in charge to let go of the control like that.
It leads to the ultimate diagnostic question the source proposes. And if you take nothing else away from this deep dive, take this question, write it on a sticky note. Are we building a legacy that depends on our presence or one that thrives in our absence?
That's the million-dollar question.
It forces you to check your ego. Are you the hero of the story? Or are you the guide? Are you the builder? Or are you the scaffolding that eventually gets taken down so the building can stand on its own?
And the beauty of this principle is that it applies to everything. Parenting. Are you raising kids who need you forever or kids who can function without you? Management is your team helpless when you go on vacation.
Absolutely. So let's bring this home. We started with a crisis. Mobilization is outpacing shepherding. We are sending people out faster than we can care for them and faster than the local context can absorb them.
We looked at the theology of replacement, where our expertise accidentally displaces the spirit and creates dependency.
And we found the solution in the slow, gritty, unglamorous work of shepherding, recovering the rhythm of sharing, praying, and going.
It's a call to move from transactional sending, where people are just units of labor to be moved around a map, to relational sustaining.
That is a challenge for you, the listener, whether you are supporting a missionary, leading a nonprofit, or just trying to be a faithful member of your community. Are you looking for the quick win, or are you willing to walk at the pace of love?
God is interested in fruit that lasts, and fruit takes time to grow. You can't rush a harvest.
Fruit that lasts. That feels like the right place to land. It's a challenge to slow down, to look people in the eye, and to trust that the Spirit works just as well in the slow lane as he does in the fast lane.
Maybe even better.
Maybe even better. Thanks for helping us unpack this today. It's been a really rich conversation.
Pleasure to be here.
And to you listening, thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll see you next time.